Now just a fast 3 minutes review. Meditation contains concentration and contemplation. And for concentration, we use the object, the breath as the object. Contemplation, we practice by the 4 introspections of the mind. Okay, contemplation of body, of feeling, of mind impressions. But before we go into concentration and contemplation, there are the 5 methods of stilling the mind, which is an expedient or skillful means preparing you for concentration and contemplation. So even before that, before this, we should have a preparation for these. And one of these preparations, the 5 methods of calming the mind. This is before a preparation for satipatthana, for introspection and for concentration. And we have started talking about contemplating the breath. Now, even contemplating the breath, there are certain things you have to do. Some people may be practicing in here for years and they haven't really faithfully followed the breath. They just sit there quietly, relaxing. That's not meditation. Because I can't control your mind how to think. When you are practicing in here, some people just sit there or chanting or not doing this. Now, that's the reason why I told you. You have to really faithfully follow it. So contemplating the breath, and I have explained that itself includes 6 methods according to the Buddha. The first one is counting. The second one is following. When you are successful in your counting, when you're thorough with your counting, you already have, so to speak, mastered your counting techniques, then you go into following. When you have mastered your following technique, you go into stabilization. When you master stabilization, you go into introspection. When you master introspection, you go into returning. When you master returning, you go into purification. When you go into purification, you are already all prepared for satipatthana, for high level of meditation. So these are the basics that you really have to follow before you get into satipatthana, the 4 introspections, according to the Buddha. And we started with counting. We said counting the in and out breath, but not both. Count from 1 to 10 and then resume. Breathe spontaneously as to breathing from time to time. Do not make your breath longer or shorter. Be natural, do not count beyond 10. Your breath is continuously living with your mind. If the breath is deep, smooth, quiet, subtle, and long, that could indicate that the mind is more stabilizing than living with a mind, a breath that is short, interrupted, noisy, and short. Now that we have already talked about it. So we said, when you become successful in your counting, you could even have a glimpse of the 4 dhyanas, or the 4 immeasurables, or the formless absorptions. So when you really follow your breath and you do it successfully, you master the practice, you know, because you are in, they used to say absorption, jhana, or the most tranquility, equanimity. If you don't have that, that means you haven't mastered it. We already talked about it last time. Now we talk about how to count and what the count will make you realize what. So we already have covered it. I think you already have copied down some notes on that. And today, I only have 10 minutes left, so I don't know what I should be talking about, but I would be talking about this that I haven't talked about last time. The quality of the breath when you are counting during meditation, you may possess any of the 4 characteristics. So in other words, you can examine yourself. You can be a teacher of yourself as to how successful you have been in your counting, as to whether you have really master the practice of counting. There are 4 qualities. Windy breathing, when the meditator senses the presence of a sound as the breath goes in and out of the nose, you actually feel the sound there. The sound. If you feel the sound, there's one quality. You can feel the sound of the breath. There's one characteristic. The second characteristic is uneven breathing. When the meditator breathing is uneven, not smooth, and obstructed, as if having nasal congestion when one has a flu. So in other words, your breath is interrupted. Your breath is not smooth. Your breath is not even. That's uneven breathing. That's another characteristic in your breath. The third, ordinary breathing. Even though the meditator's breathing makes no sound, even and unobstructed, it is still not subtle. That's the ordinary breathing that we have. Ordinary people breathe, you don't know that you have a sound. But you do have a sound, because if you put 2 fingers into your eardrums and listened, you may hear the sound of your breath. Or if you really put your attention to it, the sound is there. You may think there is no sound, but actually there is a sound there. That means you may not be ordinarily breathing because you realize the sound. It may be interrupted. I know some people told me that their breath is interrupted. In other words, they feel as if they don't have enough breath. When they breathe in, it's interrupted. They have to make it longer, but they can't. So the breath is not smooth. Subtle breathing, no sound, no obstructions. The exhalation and inhalation are of extended duration, such that they are as if still there and yet not there. You feel that your breath, oh, my breath is there, but it's not there. I can't feel it. It's so subtle, so fine, so long, so deep, that I cannot feel my breath. Even if I close my eardrums, even if I really feel it, I don't feel my breath. That's good. That is a subtle breathing. That is subtle breathing. Now, if that happens, the mind becomes peaceful, stabilizing, and you're feeling content. You feel that everything is so peaceful, everything is so tranquil. Do you have that feeling when you're doing subtle breathing? When you have subtle breathing, then this technique, which is the number 1, there are 6 more, which follow one after the other. The first one, we say it, okay, you pass. You pass the first one. If you have subtle breathing, you pass the first one. If you can't even have subtle breathing, you don't even pass the breathing test. How can you have a good meditation? You understand what I mean? So be your own examiner, be your own marker. You can mark your own examination paper. How do you do a pass? How do you qualify for a pass? Subtle breathing. No sound, no obstruction, even. You're breathing, but you can't feel it. It's so long, so deep, so unnoticeable, so subtle. It's not coarse. Then you start to have some peace setting into your mind, because your breath, you can focus on it. Now, that goes without saying that you are not scattering. If you are scattering, then you have no peace. If you are drowsy, you have no peace. If you are drowsy, what kind of breathing you have? What kind of breathing? That's drowsiness. But if you are scattering, what kind of breathing you have? If you are scattering, your mind will be so confused. Oh, how come I'm thinking about yesterday? How come I'm anxious about tomorrow? How come I worry about where am I going after lunch? How come I worry about all this? Then you don't have subtle breathing, because you're not even setting your mind on the breathing. So can you be your own examiner? Don't say, I need a teacher. Yes, at this point, you don't need a teacher. Who is your teacher at this point? Not me. It's the Buddha. The Buddha put all this down, telling us this is how we examine ourselves. Do it step by step. Don't say, oh, I want to attain enlightenment. I want to be awake. I want to have awakening. Oh, I have a trance. I couldn't see my own body. You can't even do your own counting. There's so many meditation techniques out. We are following the Buddha's technique. There's so many techniques out that they slightly modify the Buddha's meditation technique and call it their own. There's so many meditation techniques that they modify 40% and call it meditation. But we are following the Buddha's way according to Satipatthana, Anapanasati, Mahasatipatthana Sutra. So this is counting.